look at his voice, which is a beautiful thing. Some examples, 126, this is when the twins just lost a rowing competition and Cameron doesn't want to talk. And it says, Cameron is thinking about starting a war with Monaco right now. So he lets his brother do the talking. Page 37, at the Jewish fraternity Caribbean party that they're having in the middle of winter, it says that the party is about as lame as it sounds. What's important is that this couldn't be less like the final club party we saw at the beginning if they were playing pin the tail on the donkey. Page 89, it says, the president's office is one of the 2 oldest university buildings in the country, and the secretary sitting at the desk is even older. You get the sense that she thinks Harvard would be a better place if it weren't for all these students. So the writing is chef's kiss, of course, and it's important in your screenwriting to find ways to put your style, your voice in there, because you're not writing an instruction manual. You're writing a literary document that is alive. Yes, it's never finished. It's always changing, but you have to have your voice in it, or then why are you writing it? Anyone could write it. One of the things I was sort of surprised about, that Sorkin talks to us, the reader, quite a bit in the screenplay. Many, many times he lets us in on what's going on, talking directly to us. First example is on page 22 when he is introducing us to Marilyn, the attorney, and it says that she is a pleasant, pretty, professional, young contemporary of Mark's named Marilyn that we'll get to know. So he's telling us this is not a throwaway character. You'll get to know her as you go through the screenplay. On page 26, he's setting up the deposition for the first time, and he's letting us know, strap in, because we're going to be back and forth a lot. He says here, in fact, he says, we'll be back and forth between the 2 deposition rooms a lot. He just puts it right out there. He's talking to you, the reader. On page 65, he's setting up the scene in the classroom, and he says, we'll hear the speaker, but we'll only get to see him in a slightly blurred image as our attention is on Mark and Eduardo. So he's saying, your attention is going to be on these characters, not the teacher. On page 22, the first time we see Zuckerberg in the future, it says, it's 3 years later and Mark is sitting with his lawyers at a large conference table. Mark is wearing a hoodie, sweatpants, and Adidas flip-flops, a personal uniform that we'll come to understand. And while it may take us a while to notice it, Mark's a different person in these flash-forward scenes. So, talking to us directly. And on page 76, when Erica makes her reappearance, it says that she is the character from the first scene in the screenplay. It tells us, hey, this was the old ex-girlfriend, in case you didn't, you don't recognize her. Sorkin also, many times in the screenplay, will tell us things that can't be shown on the screen. Like we talked about doing it in character introductions. He does do it outside of that throughout the screenplay. One example is on page 29, where we're back in that classroom again, and it says Mark is in the operating systems class. This is considered the hardest class at Harvard, and Mark is one of the 50 students with their laptops open. So it's good to know this is the hardest class at Harvard, but there's no way of showing that, and really it's irrelevant. But he wanted you to know it, so he put it in here. On page 11, when he's setting up the scene at a club downtown, he says that a bouncer, a townie in a tuxedo and a headset, is manning the velvet ropes that guard the thick wooden red double doors that lead to, believe it or not, one of the most exclusive clubs in the world. So he thought it was important for us to know that this is one of the most exclusive clubs, but he's telling us that it's not something you can show on camera. Rather than, you can see it's a fancy club, but you don't know that it is one of the hardest clubs to get into in the world. And I still don't know, but I believe him. And this is the 3rd week in a row that we've had the side comment in the action lines. First, it was Ari Aster, who's the master of that. He has hundreds and hundreds of side comments, thoughts that the character is having independent of what's being said by the dialogue. Drew Hancock also last week in Companion, he did it quite a bit, not as much as Ari Aster. Here we get it one time from Aaron Sorkin on page 51. It says, Mark just keeps looking at him, barely even blinking. Quote, why am I being interrupted? So he's wanting us to specifically know what this look from Mark means. This look from Mark means, why are you bothering me? Why am I being interrupted? He does it with a double dash and quotation marks. Aster and Hancock do it with italics, but it's here. I thought it would be worth pointing out. And we always like to look to see how screenwriters handle music in their screenplay, because think about what we're creating here is visual. It has to stimulate all of the senses, what we see, what we hear, what we feel, touch, smell. And so music's a big part of films. Some screenwriters are very specific about this song, these lyrics. If you look at, for example, Trey Edward Schultz, who did Waves, and he has the new Weekend film that's coming out later this summer. He puts the lyrics in there, and he intertwines the lyrics with his screenwriting. And it's very specific about this part of the song is hitting when this is going on. Some screenwriters will be specific about the song and the artist. Here, though, is the more classic example from our screenwriter today, Aaron Sorkin. On page 9, we get the pulsing intro of a song crashes in that will take us through the following sequence. And then we go to the next scene, and then it says the music continues, and a little bit later on, it says the music is out. On 44, at the top of the page, it says music kicks in that will tie this next section together as we cut to interior Mark's dorm room night. Since we just read that, it gives us the opportunity to talk about how he sometimes writes into the scene heading. This is something screenwriters debate. Some do it, some don't. Where one school of thought is you want each scene to stand independently. You want it to end with a period and it's over. Some will use the ... to take you to the next scene. Here he writes into the scene heading. He's saying in his action line that this section will take us to where? To Mark's dorm room at night. And now